So I chose as our example Violet Crawley, the Dowager Countess of Downton Abbey, not expecting the actress Maggie Smith to die just before we had this time together. So I want to take a moment in respect of the great career and artistry of Maggie Smith. We fell in love with her when she was the prime of Miss Jean Brodie. She won an Oscar for that. She was in Room with a View. Sister Act, where she played a marvelous supporting role to a comic hoot. The Harry Potter series, that's the one that the young people know her from. The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. She won another Oscar for something called California Suite, which is a Neil Simon play and then movie. And then most recently, the Downton Abbey series, mini-series, and then movies. A couple of quotes from Maggie Smith. If you're lucky, you know what you want to do with your life. That's a great gift. It must be awful to not know what to do. And she said, old people are scary. I have to face it. I am old and I am scary. And a third here, it's true I don't tolerate fools, but then they don't tolerate me. So I am spiky. Maybe that's why I'm quite good at playing spiky elderly ladies. We love you, Maggie Smith. About celebrities, movie stars, great actors and public figures. They hold our projections. I mean, they have lives, I think. I mean, you read about it in the magazines and things. I'm not very interested in their lives. I'm interested in the performance. I'm interested in what they represent. Well, they play the role once held by gods. That is, in religious stories, if you go to India and you see all these colorful figures, each one is holding some emotion, some dimension of human experience. And you go to that shrine, and if you want to be the trickster, you go to Hanuman's temple. You go to different parts for different aspects of life. Actors, other celebrities hold these different moods and personalities and dimensions for us. Maggie Smith represented wit and strength. She did not back down from early on into old age. She has come to represent doing our later years well. You know, the best shamans were old. There's some, and a little crazy, a little dangerous, a little unpredictable. They represented the ability to cross over into unseen dimensions. Now, whether that's the dimensions of the sacred energies or the unconscious human aspects, this threshold crossing ability is the center of their magic and their healing. So, does that get greater when we get older? Possibly. We certainly get a little more crazy. That is, what happens is the rough edges show. When you're young, you've got enough energy to keep the mask together, to keep the pose, the passing, because we want to be liked, and we want to get along, we want to accomplish things, so we play the game. It's not that we're so rebellious when we get old, it's that all that takes some energy, and we've got a little less energy to spend, so we don't spend it on that so much, and you know, things start coming out that you didn't expect. The story, Downton Abbey, Lady Violet Crawley, she uses humor, sometimes to bridge opposites. She's often the mediator. Was she always in that role? We don't know. We don't know that part of the story. We met her at her older age, and she is playing a certain very important role in the family. She's not in charge of the family. Her son, the Earl, he's in charge, supposedly, unless she, of course, wants something, in which case she gets it. So here is this second power center in the family system. She does represent the ability to take on difficult topics, to face the shadow aspects of life or personality. Unitarian poet May Sarton once said, "Do not deprive me of my age. I have earned it." By the way, in my comments this morning, I don't feel a need to be balanced on the topic of old age. There's plenty around on the downside, on the challenges of getting older. Mobility itself, just you get a little more careful. You step up on something. When I go on stairs and things, I fell downstairs a couple times. Not lately, about 10 years ago, and I thought, okay, my footing is not as sure as it once was. And ever since then, I didn't get seriously hurt, but it got my attention that I didn't calculate the steps quite right. Now I pay a little more attention. So I'm going to celebrate the good news. Part of it is how we look at things. For example, I like to think that my lifetime supply of brain cells is finally getting down to a manageable number. A friend told me she was going to a 92nd birthday party for a friend. And I said, that's great, but you really can't have much of a party in a minute and a half. That one you have to think about. I remember when my grandmother told me her joints were getting weaker, I said, roll them tighter. These are selective jokes, you get to see a laugh from that side of the room and get the delayed laugh. All right, let's get into the story. I'm jumping into the story. There's a long prologue before the moment that Isabel meets Violet. Isabel is a distant cousin, and her son is the next heir, the heir that everyone thought was going to step in when the Earl dies, sank on the Titanic. They did not expect this come. So here is this barrister. I mean, he's of aristocratic blood, but he's been living a middle-class life. He has to go to work for a job to make a living, things that they just don't even understand. And so here is the moment of meeting, and it does not go well. These are technically distant cousins, and Isabel comes over. Her name is Crawley, too. Says, well, what shall we call each other? Well, we could always start with Lady Grantham and Mrs. Crawley. I mean, she gets a very icy reception. Violet's a very formal person. They have this formal entry with everybody's lined up, and her son, Matthew, who is the heir now, to everyone's surprise, says, oh, quite a reception. And everybody looks at each other because this is the standard reception. He's just not used to this level of elegance. So there is a big theme of courtship in the story, and Violet is forever meddling. And now courtship as a theme in a story is a universal thing. Everyone needs to find a partner. It's not only your personal fulfillment, it's also the extension of the family and holding society together. A lot is actually at stake, and when there are fancy mansions and things involved, more is at stake. Although I want to take that part of the story lightly, because I don't know what the demographics are, how many aristocrats even watch things like this. I don't know how much time they spend watching the tube. No, this is a middle-class drama set in a mansion. These are our concerns. For all I know, the people that actually live in those mansions are thinking of other things. But we are thinking about courtship. Violet makes a comment one time, there's a bit of a scandal, and should the bride tell her groom before marriage, and Violet comments, one way or another, every woman goes down the aisle with half the story hidden. She is a force to be reckoned with, but so is Isabel. And even though she was married to a doctor, now deceased, and was trained as a nurse in wartime, she knows something of the world, and she is part of the family, and she is a force to be reckoned with. And these two battle a good deal early in the story. They make up gradually as they go along. I would take these two energies, these two elders, as different aspects of our own aging, different ways we are. We are practical in the world and perhaps also capable of being a little aloof. And there's another. I would say the triple goddess is finished out when Martha Levinson arrives from America. Violet makes a comment in advance, I'm so looking forward to seeing your mother again. She's talking about to her daughter-in-law, who is American. When I'm with her, I'm reminded of the virtues of the English. And Matthew, the new heir, says, isn't she American? And Violet says, exactly. And then we meet her, and she's played by Shirley MacLaine, and Martha is something. And there's a joke that the British make, America, isn't that where they discovered comfort and thought it was civilization? Well, Martha Levinson is very well off. She married a rich guy. She lives in Newport in a cottage. Those are those huge mansions in Newport, Rhode Island, that the rich call cottages. Perhaps we are all three of these sages, or maybe we're the whole cast of the story. After all, a story comes out of one writer's imagination, Julian Fellowes in this case, a man of minor aristocratic background who knew that world and was a wonderful writer. The actors, when they interview them, they say, of course it was a good show, it was in the script. These lines were terrific. So we are many, and it comes out of one writer's mind and into the audience one at a time. So we're all these characters. I'm focusing on these elderly women right now. Martha Levinson, in the course of the story, changes the least. She already has achieved self-acceptance. She is spontaneous. The big moment of her visit from America, she's there for the wedding, but she throws a picnic. Well, what happened was the oven broke. Huge gathering in this huge house, no food. This can't happen. Do we send everybody home? She says, no, we'll have a picnic. Isn't there cold meat in the refrigerator thing? We'll just put out whatever is available. People will sit wherever they want to and don't even use the dining room. Well, we can't do that. That's not done. Sure we can. It'll be fun. And they do it. And that's her contribution. That's the part of ourselves that can have fun, that can do the unexpected. And when Lady Violet is nodding off a little bit, Martha sits down next to her and begins singing to her, "Let me call you sweetheart." Old song, and Violet sort of wakes up being serenaded to it. What is this? And I'm in love with you. And she picks up Violet's hand and kisses it. A real gesture, because they're not that close. And Violet is constantly sarcastic. After all, this is a person from ordinary background, a wealthy person with a house equal to hers, but not from the right background. And Martha wins her over, as Isabel does. There is a movement toward reunion in this story that I hope is reflected in later life. The parts of ourselves that didn't get along find a way to begrudgingly accept each other. It's not ever totally settled, but it isn't the full-on battle it once was. This little gesture then breaks through Violet's reserve, at least for a moment. I would take that to be our psychological defenses. Early in life, we build up ways to make ourselves safer, and then the rest of our life, those are in our way. And the big task, therapy, if you will, is to dismantle the defenses that aren't necessary anymore. They're just clunky. Maybe we get more precious moments later in life because we're doing a little less. That's not really true. When you start to see what people do around here who volunteer in their 80s and 90s, yes, we're not really doing less, but maybe with less pressure, maybe a little less to prove. After all, we've proved enough. Besides, it's too late. This is it. Take what you get. Now, Martha is outrageous and sometimes inappropriate. She sneaks up. She's the part of ourselves that can sneak up on our own stuffiness. That's what happens in the story. She has more freedom and authenticity, and maybe that's what we gain. Maybe that's what we gain. Irma Bombeck said, "The fact was, I didn't want to look my age, but I didn't want to act the age I wanted to look either. I also wanted to grow old enough to understand that sentence." There is a community life. Violet is quite the gardener, and there is a festival where awards are given for the best gardens and the best bloom. The highest award, the Grantham Cup, is the best rose in the village. And Lady Violet always wins it. She has beautiful, beautiful roses. Now there is an old man, Mosley, who has also quite beautiful roses. And when people come to the display, they look at his, but he never wins the award. And somebody mentions to Violet that maybe she's getting it because she's the great lady. She says, "Oh, no, but my flowers, and my gardener would be so hurt if we didn't win." And then the moment comes when the award is going to be given out, and she's the master of ceremonies. She's the one giving the awards. As she looks down the piece of paper, and she sees her name as yet again winning the award, the cup for the best bloom, and she calls out Mr. Mosley's name. Now, she loved getting that award, and she loved her flowers, and she loved the attention. But she could see past it. Actually, several people kind of mentioned, I think you've been getting this quite a lot here. And I think she still thinks her flower is the best, but there is a graciousness that comes through, kind of by surprise, and it's a wonderful moment. And maybe it's something that comes with more age, where she has less to prove. She maybe needs that attention a little bit less. It really touches Mr. Mosley. He says, thank you. He doesn't know what was written on that paper. He doesn't know what happened, but he figures that she decided that it was his turn, and that he figures right. And she says, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. It's all in the hands of the judges, you know. Well, the part of Violet that wanted the award is the part of us that maybe wants a little too much attention, maybe gets a little bit needy or even greedy. And then that's in tension with the part of us that wants to be generous and wants to see other people receive. And we're in that struggle, and they have to take turns. Neither one is altogether right or wrong. There's another thing that happens in the family, and this is a darker part of the story. There's a bit of a scandal, and she gets a letter from her daughter, who lives in London. We don't see her very often in the series, but the daughter has come across this scandal that was some while back, and has written her, and she calls Cora, her daughter, in with this letter and says, read not the first page, she talks too much. She gets to the point about here. And Cora can see that this relative knows a lot. And Violet says, is this true? It is true, it is true. And Cora helped. And I'm not going to give you all the details, you might want to watch the show, but you get the idea. I'll give you a little hint. This is the story. This is the joke about the friend. A friend will help you move. A good friend will help you move a body. Yeah. Anyway, there's a body involved. Is it true? It's true. It's true. Last night he looked so well. Of course, it would happen to a foreigner. No Englishman would dream of dying in someone else's house. And she pivots. Here she is, all about principle, all about the right thing, all about appearances, all about the reputation of the family, and she joins in the conspiracy to keep this thing quiet and so forth. And she says, oh, no one ever visits the Turkish embassy anyway. This is one of the many times in the story where there's cross-cultural, intercultural presence in the house. And we are quite surprised, as is her daughter-in-law, quite surprised to have an ally. And she says, and she even asks why in some way, I can't remember the line. And Violet says, well, because it's family. And you see that she has big moral exceptions when it comes to the well-being of the Crawleys. She doesn't do too well with technology. There's a lot of change in her character, and then there's change going on. When the first telephone is installed, she doesn't know quite how is this an instrument of torture or communication? And she sort of finally gets it. She's a Luddite. She doesn't want this. She didn't want electricity installed. She said, all that ghostly energy floating around, I don't think I could sleep with that in the house. So you see her of the old school, of another time. Now we're watching a period drama, but she's living in a period 40 years before that, or at least has one foot in the 1800s. And we get that attitude from time to time. There was another, yes, my note here about the time my niece was threatening to get me one of those senior computers, you know, the models that have no memory at all. There was a number of tragedies in the story. It is a long family drama, and at the time of another one, her son, the Earl, is having a hard time with this. His wife blames him, he blames himself. He brought in an expert doctor who made a bad call. And Violet says to him, when tragedies strike, we try to find someone to blame. And in the absence of a suitable candidate, we usually blame ourselves. You are not to blame. No one is to blame. I do a fair amount of grief counseling. And when someone dies or someone is very ill, there is a common theme in families. Someone in the family is going to start blaming. The doctor shouldn't have done that procedure in that order, or if only your brother had stepped up sooner, that there would be someone. And there might even be something to the blame. But what's really going on is someone is dying. And no one's to blame for that, not really. That's just life. And blame gives us a little fantasy of control. I mean, it doesn't really work, but if only something had been done differently, this wouldn't be happening. No, actually, this would be happening. It might be a year later, but we're going to die. This isn't the doctor's fault, not really. It's larger than that. Speaking of illness, there is the part of the story where Violet gets quite ill. And really, it's life-threatening. It's bronchitis, but a very severe case. And the doctor is tied up with other emergencies right now. He can't tend her very much. What she needs is a full-time nurse. And her frenemy, Isabel, steps up, trained as a nurse in battle conditions. I'll do this. I can do this. I don't think Violet would have particularly wanted her to be tending, but Violet's delirious now. She's so very sick. And Isabel stays with her 48 hours straight without sleep. And when she finally comes to, when Violet comes out of the severe illness and is going to make it through and is conscious and clear again, the doctor does come by and she said, "Oh, I'm glad to be able to have a piece of toast. Could you get rid of that woman?" She says, and the doctor says, "That woman just stayed by your side 48 hours straight." She says, "Well, there was a nurse taking care of me." That was Isabel. That was Isabel. She was so off, she didn't know. In fact, she was even gossiping about Isabel while Isabel was saving her life. They get closer. They get closer. Well, this is maybe about making peace with our enemies or frenemies or whoever it is we find difficult. This is part of life. We're not going to change them. They're not going to become who they should be. That is, whatever we think would be more convenient for us. The actress Jean Moreau said, "Age doesn't protect you from love, but love, to some extent, might protect you from age." Plato said the spiritual eyesight improves as the physical eyesight declines. It's marvelous to see this prickly, difficult, spiky old woman develop tenderness even toward the woman she never got along with. And the next story, I'm selecting just little bits out of this big drama, but a few pieces that are specifically about Violet, is the one about the Russian prince. They have some aristocratic visitors, and they have some treasures from the Romanov family. And these Russians are excited to see that. They consider the Romanovs to be sacred, really, and these treasures. And one of them, Violet says, "Oh no, that fan isn't from the family. No, that's mine, actually. It had been in with the collection because it was from the occasion. They were there for a royal occasion as part of the British group that went up to Russia for something. And then a man steps out of the group. He says, no, that was from me, wasn't it? And it's her old flame. Apparently she was married, but there was was it an affair? Was it a heavy flirtation? It was something. Mary says, "Ooh, Grandma has a past." Yes, things come out. It was Schopenhauer, I alluded to this earlier. The closing years of life are like the end of a masquerade party. When the masks are dropped, we start to see things. And these folks that we knew in church forever turn out to have more colorful past than we had imagined. And we've been sitting next to them all these times. We have pasts, and some parts are messy. The Russian prince, who is now in exile, wants to hook up with her, wants to spend his old age with her. She knows that somewhere there's an estranged wife. She uses her contacts and locates the Russian princess and Prince Kurgan's wife in British Hong Kong and arranges for them to reconnect as a way to get away from this guy. It's a good story, but it's not in the present. It's not in the present. Happiness is good health and a bad memory. It's an old saying. Okay, this is the joke. The joke is the guy that moves into the retirement community and he's meeting people, and some woman, very, very chirpy, lively woman, comes up and says, "You look just like my third husband." And he says, "Oh, well, that's an amazing coincidence. Third, really? Well, how many times have you been married?" She says, "Twice." And the final section of the story that I'll look at together is the succession story. and this is in the follow-on movie. Violet has been to London to see the doctors and has something serious and knows that her days are numbered, and she needs to have the conversation. She sits Mary, the eldest of the daughters, down back in a room during a big party, and she said, I need you to know this is all going to be in your hands. And Mary says, well, my father runs things very well. She says, well, your father's a wonderful, her son, Violet's son, he's a wonderful man, but I see you as the true heir. I see you as the one that's going to hold this family together. And Mary doesn't know if she's up for it. And Violet says, I've known you your whole life. You're up for it. You're the one who can do this. And she has picked wisely. And Mary has in fact been running the estate and has very good executive strength and things. There will come a time in our lives when an elder will say, you're in charge now, whether it's out loud or not. And there will come a time when we are to say to somebody else, you're in charge now, whether they're ready or not. And we pick as well as we can. There's a natural alliance between grandchildren and grandparents anyway. They have common enemies, that a generation in between. But that generation is trying to hold things together and stress both the young and the elderly are a little bit marginalized. They're not quite at the center of things. And they know, and the stress is landing on the generation in between. And they sometimes have time to be together and can be a little more relaxed. Violet says about herself, a woman of my age can face reality far better than most men. Elders care about the future. It's strange because they won't be here, but they're looking at it. First of all, they've been here a long time, and it's the elders that watch the History Channel and read those big, beautiful books about things that happened before they were here. James Hillman, the great psychologist, said the elders have more time, which doesn't quite compute. They don't have more time. They're not going to be here that long. What do you know? No, they have time. They have a sense of time. They have their time, which is lengthy, and they have the time before that, and they have the time after it. They live in time in a different way. That's why she's able to have a reflective side later in her life. That's why she's able to handle the succession conversation so well. She does make a comment, though. No life appears rewarding if you think about it too much. And another quote that is repeated quite a lot from the series, all life is a series of problems which we must try to solve. That is to say, you don't fix life. You just accept the problems and the task of working on problems to your last day. That's it. That's what we do. And let's hope that we can find the courage to adapt, the wisdom to guide, and the humor to light our paths. We can learn from characters like this. Florida Scott Maxwell was a Jungian analyst. She said, you need only claim the events of your life to make yourself yours. You need only claim the events of your life to make yourself yours. When you truly possess all that you have been and done, which may take some time, you are fierce with reality. Well, we spend our lives seeking redemption. That's just the way culture seems to have set it up. And then recover from this task and reach a point where, what am I trying to prove? Do I need to be fixed? Is there something that was wrong? And we don't so much reach redemption as release the task and just decide, this will be okay. This will do. Perhaps the ordinary, stumbling, flawed life is as good as it gets. Sometimes it is marked by true wonder. You can tell someone is getting on when they stop pretending to be younger and start bragging about how old they are. Okay, we're up to the action steps. I have quite a few this time because of the occasion. I have been thinking about this. What do you do when you think about getting older? Well, enjoy the simple pleasures, not the big things. Let yourself be enchanted by small things. Be able to laugh at yourself, laugh at our foibles. We've always had a lot, now we have more. The second is savor the trade-off. There is this huge bargain going on. When you're young, you've got a lot of extra energy, you look good, you have plans, dreams, all kinds of things. When you're old, some of that's gone, and what you have is sometimes called wisdom. You have some perspective. You can savor small delights, and they can be very valuable. You have your memories, you have self-knowledge, you have some self-acceptance, maybe even wisdom. When you're old, you can remember the last time the group tried something and why it didn't work. Okay, this third of my action steps is to appreciate people. Appreciate people. Be thankful for the company on the journey. The fourth is to accept our flaws. Moods will come and go. Greet them like neighbors. Don't solve them, just greet them like neighbors. Sometimes old embarrassments can turn into really good stories, things that you were trying to not ever mention. You start deciding that's something worth talking about. Okay, the next one on my list is notice that there is less to prove. Let the pressure go. And the last on the list is to claim the reflective life, whatever that is for you. It might be art, it might be reading or meditation, gardening, knitting. Do I see a knitter in the room? A daily walk. You know, when successful Jewish men get old, they have been through the grief of many friends and family members dying. They often will save up their money and move to Jerusalem. Now, this is not out of a thought that there's an afterlife. It's just thought that Jerusalem is a holy place. And if you've been to the wall, you will see all these old guys praying and rocking. And that is the bliss of late life. Figure out what that is for you. What is sacred? What is deep? What is beautiful? And move there. No, I'm not talking about actually moving to a different place. I'm talking about moving our attention into a reflective dimension. I'm going to conclude with a poem by Billy Collins that Anne found for me. It's called Days. Each one is a gift, no doubt, mysteriously placed in your waking hand or set upon your forehead moments before you open your eyes. Today begins cold and bright, the heavy snow on the ground and the thick masonry of ice, the sun glinting off the turrets of clouds. Through the calm eye of the window, everything is in its place. But so precariously, this day might be resting somehow on the one before it. All the days of the past stacked high like the impossible tower of dishes entertainers used to build on stage. No wonder you find yourself perched on the top of a tall ladder, hoping to add one more. Just another Wednesday, you whisper. Then, holding your breath, place this cup on yesterday's saucer without the slightest clink. Namaste. Blessed be. And so it goes. Let us join.